Welcome to another episode of Straight Like That, the podcast hosted by me, Camille. Today we've got Jourdan Ziff on for an episode. Welcome to the pod.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Of course. But first, let's shout out the sponsors. Tasty Mates, a gourmet gummy sweet based in London, England. Organically made gummies that come in a few different flavors. They just recently put out a new passion fruit flavor. So be sure to check them out, link in bio for that. And Club DS. Club DS is a streetwear brand based out of Los Angeles. The word diez means the number 10 in Spanish. And the number 10 in soccer is always the player that brings the most joy, creativity, and takes risks. Inspired by their Mexican roots and the number 10 in the beautiful game, Club DS created the mantra of Siempre con alegría, which translates to always with joy. The message of the brand stems deep in the Los Angeles community, and the aim is to spread this message to other communities around the world. The mission is to remind people that no matter what you're going through, do it with joy. Life is full of ups and downs, but you will always be able to overcome any obstacle. A little bit of positivity, faith, and joy will go a long way. Siempre con alegría. So let's get straight to it. So why soccer? How'd you get into it?
I actually was put in soccer when I was really young. I have one older sister. She's about 2 years older than me. So kind of when she started at 6, they threw me out in the field too at like 4. And I just ran around playing youth soccer until I joined my first club team at 8 years old.
Okay. And what was that like? Kind of, did you enjoy your time playing around, or were you just doing it because you wanted to hang around with your sister?
Yeah, I think I loved it immediately. My parents really wanted us to play a sport that we really liked, and we all did different things. I did karate at the same time, and I ended up running some track and field. I did some surfing, but I loved soccer, and I joined that club team and ended up meeting so many of my best friends, and so immediately the whole environment was very enjoyable for me.
Okay. All right. So you were 8 years old when you first started playing club. Was it kind of like a rec league kind of club, or was it kind of more on the serious side?
It was on the more serious side. I think I went from that transition to rec to club, and I'm from Temecula, California, and I joined the Hawks, which was more of a local club. And I think for a lot of people in California, they end up traveling to the coast 1 or 2 hours and joining some bigger name clubs. But my specific team ended up having some success even from an earlier age. And we kind of were a little unconventional in that we all stuck together and played together for a really long time. So I didn't ever really start traveling far out of my city for club soccer.
Yeah. So how long were you guys grouped together for? And did you have like the same coach with you and everything?
We went through like a couple different coaches. I think when you're younger too, they like seeing, they just rotate through coaches even within a
Hmm.
club. But I mean, some of my best friends are still some of the ones that I played soccer with when I was 8 years old.
Oh,
New
wow.
people joined, and there was still a degree of levels of teams that people would move up.
Hmm.
And so I ended up, I think by the time I was like 14, we had a coach that I was really close to, and I had him for then the rest of my club career and played with a lot of those girls up until I went to college.
Wow. So you guys really stuck from 8 years old all the way through.
Yeah, yeah,
Wow.
for the most part. A couple people might have moved, and then a few people had joined, and we always had tryouts, and so people would come in. But there was a core group of us. I mean, we still have a group chat and
That's
keep
amazing.
in touch. It was honestly really special.
Yeah. So as you're, going through this, you're really enjoying playing, you have your friends around you.
Mhm.
When did you kind of almost realize that I'm actually really good at this game and maybe I could make something out of it, maybe, while you're in high school or whatnot?
Yeah. I remember one specific talk with that club coach. His name's David Halliday, and he's still a coach in Temecula Valley. And I knew I really loved it. And I was a much smaller player. I just grew a lot later. I was young for my grade, which made it more difficult for recruiting for me. And so there was a moment where I was like, I love this so much. I want to play in college, but this is happening a little later for me than other girls who were getting recruited their sophomore year of high school and even their junior year. And I was going into my senior year and being like, am I going to get recruited by a school that I also really want to go to, that's
Mhm.
somewhere that I want to play and be challenged? And I remember having that talk with him, and he really saw it in me, which helped because sometimes, my family was good support system and hard on me. But sometimes it's hard to take, your mom's word or your dad's word
Yeah,
for
yeah.
you're good. So that really inspired me to know I can keep doing this. I will find something and keep playing.
Yeah. So talk to us about that while you're in high school, the whole recruiting process.
Yeah. So for me, it happened a little bit later. I grew late and I was really young for my grade. I graduated high school at 17. Um, and no, oh yeah, I graduated high school at 17 and went into my freshman year of college at 17. So I was recruited my senior year. And that was something where I was looking at a couple schools. It came down to a couple schools, and two of those were University of California, Riverside, really close to where I lived, and Loyola University, Maryland, which was an East Coast school. And I'd
Yeah.
never even been to the East Coast. And uh, as I was going through those recruiting processes and really narrowing it down to kind of my final few options, it was the distance that made me hesitant. But I really loved Loyola and their facilities and what I saw in their program when they had me out there. So that was kind of the recruiting process. And it was a nice private school. And so it was like, okay, how can I get a scholarship there? Because I'm later, and how can I make this work?
Did you ever get worried because of how late it was?
Yeah, definitely. I think there's always pressure in in soccer in general, in life in general, of some timeline, the timeline you see other people going through, uh, that you then compare yourself to.
Yeah.
And really, the case is that everyone's story and paths are so different. And I wish that's impressed upon us and told to us more, even from a young age, because that's where you start getting in your own head. Like, is it my skill that's not getting me there because my timeline looks different? Uh, so I think I did get worried, but I kind of always knew at the same time, like I loved it. So I was going to make it work. I was ready even to walk on, like apply to schools and walk onto a program that I really wanted to play on. So
Yeah, so you were going to make it happen regardless of how it came.
I think so. I think
Yeah.
so. Yeah.
So you go ahead and you pick Loyola. That's literally the opposite side of the country. And you said you've never been to the East Coast. So what was that, move like for you?
Yeah. That was, I mean, and when I kind of look back at my career, that was that was like the springboard in, I think, unlocking that potential to go and play further and further, even after my college experience. But I knew I wanted to do it. And so I committed and I was ready. But it doesn't hit you until it's like the week before you move and you're like,
Yeah.
wait, I have to go now. Like,
Yeah,
that's
yeah,
how it works.
yeah.
Um, but I wanted to make it happen. And my family gave me a lot of support. And so I knew regardless of where I was, it would feel like they were close. I knew they wanted to come out and see games. And so I didn't want it to be the reason why I didn't choose the program that I felt the most drawn to.
So you're over there, you start playing. What was, I guess, your first season like, the first couple of weeks at the school, first couple of weeks in the East Coast? What was all that like?
Yeah. I think I I was ready for anything and wanted to be along for the ride. It's also college and I'm 17 years old, and I was very social. I loved meeting people. So I was just excited to be a part of this new environment, be challenged. But kind of like I said before, I was on the same team, even though I had played in for high school too. But I had the same core group of girls playing for years and years. So this was going to be out of my element and playing with girls that are then 4 and 5, maybe 6 years older than me since I was so young.
Right.
Um, and so there's an adjustment to that next level of collegiate soccer. It was a Division 1 program. So it was, we didn't have lifting when I was in high school. So there was all these things where I was like, okay, this is the next level. How can I get there and how can I adjust?
Yeah. So how was that adjustment period?
I think, for me, it was It wasn't too bad. I My sister is a huge athlete. I would say the almost the athlete of the family, even though I've gone and played. She was a soccer player and then a runner, and kind of watching her athleticism mentally allowed me to adjust to what it was going to take for me too, because she was such an elite athlete. I knew I had to do the fitness. I knew, there was a lot of things. You have to be happy where you are too. And I think I made a lot of great friendships within even my first couple months there that kind of grounds you to where you're going to be instead of, oh, I miss home and all I have is this time on the field. Like, I really wanted to enjoy the whole thing.
Hmm.
So that also helped me adjust. And I was able to find ways to see playing time for myself even within my first year. And that's always a big boost as an athlete when you want to play the game.
Yeah, of course. And I kind of looked up a couple things, and I seen you had some serious success over there. You did your thing
Yeah.
over there.
Yeah, it really was a cool experience. And I've always been a bit of a versatile player. I mean, I grew in and made a bit of a mark as like a center forward, but when I got to Loyola for college, I was playing outside mid a lot, outside forward, maybe some center forward, depending on our position. And that versatility served me well for a while because, especially when you're a new player in the collegiate environment, you are seeing where can I fit and where can I find success.
Hmm.
And that helped me.
Yeah. So was it kind of like each year you notice, you're getting better and better? Did you face any challenges while, you were in college, anything like that?
Yeah, I would say that college is a big time of self growth as well. You're learning so much about yourself and also dealing with a lot of chaos in your environment because
Mm.
you have a degree you're pursuing, you have a coaching staff where that pressure ends up being on your entire commission as well. Um, Whereas in club, their jobs are solidified. This is a whole different thing. And so there were challenges for sure. I had a few big injuries in college, and that was some of my first experiences with going through the surgery processes and your return to play and keeping your focus where it should be, but also not focusing so much and being so tunnel visioned that you're losing yourself and your happiness and where you're at because I was so far from home
Hmm.
and I had to stay happy to make it and live so far. So I had a knee surgery when I was over there at the end of my freshman year, and then my junior year, like uh, it was the game that made me ineligible to redshirt. So I was just missed the cut, but I had a huge foot injury where I ruptured a ligament in my foot and was out for 9 months and went through two
Damn.
surgeries. And junior is a big year, so that was an experience.
Damn. And you weren't able to redshirt that
I
year.
was not able to redshirt. I had heard it. I remember we were playing against St. John's, and it was 7 minutes into the game, and those 7 minutes made me ineligible for the cutoff. So yeah,
Damn,
I had to
that's
swallow
really
that one.
unlucky. Yeah, yeah, yeah. So how,
Yeah.
you're going through the surgery process for the first time, you're going through long periods of time of recovery. How did you kind of like stay sharp mentally or stay even positive?
Yeah. I had a couple really great role models over there and people that I could talk to. My junior year, before my injury, I was made a captain of the team, which was, a little bit unconventional just because I was a junior. And, a lot of times seniors are the leaders of the group. So then getting injured, all of a sudden, I was someone that felt like I had a lot of natural leadership on the field. And now I was sidelined because of my
Yeah.
injury. And they're not going to strip you of being a captain. So you don't want to drag your team down with you. So I had to learn very quickly how to find a role in other ways in my sport. And I had our strength and conditioning coach there. She looked at me one day and she goes, "You have the weekend to be really sad and then snap out of it and make the most of it." And that was really great advice. I don't know if everyone could just take that advice and do it, but I
Yeah.
think I understood what she was saying. And it's a little bit fake it till you make it. If you tell yourself this is miserable every day, you are going to be miserable every day. And I just, again, had to make it the environment I wanted to be in. So,
Yeah, so you were just trying to, stay as positive as possible, even if some
yeah,
days you weren't really even that positive. Did you, keep
yeah,
in contact with family? Did you, have like good friends around you kind of keeping you up? Your
yeah.
teammates maybe?
Yeah, my teammates were unbelievable. I'm someone that I think wants to too often go through, I think a lot of athletes can probably relate to this. You think you want to be your own strength and you don't want to just fall on everyone around you. So I had to learn the balance of asking for help when I needed it. Yeah, I couldn't walk for 10 weeks and I was in a boot for about 6 of those months. So it wasn't easy to be on the other side of the country and have everything to do. But now, I mean, just getting your food and things like that. I
Yeah,
remember flying all the way home one weekend because I was like, I'm having a really hard weekend. I just got to go home. And it
yeah,
was, that's a 6 hour flight for 2 days, but it's what I needed. And then you go back and you're like, okay, I'm back, and you reset. So I was really able to talk to my teammates and a few of the coaches. And they were great about understanding injury and not kind of just writing you off.
right. Yeah, because these big injuries, they don't just, affect your playing time and stuff. They affect your day to day, like just getting up to
Yeah.
get food, groceries, and all that.
Oh my
So
gosh. Yeah.
that could take such a toll mentally. So, man,
Yeah.
you go through all that your junior year. Did you, think that maybe I'm done playing? Like, was that ever a thought?
So that was interesting because I had a few of my doctors and my surgeon. My injury was called a Liz Franck injury, which is most common in a football lineman
Hmm.
because of how you accelerate. And there was a chance that I would not be able to return to play based off of just the mechanism in your foot and what you have to do to be an explosive player in soccer. And for some reason, that just never registered. I think I just knew. I was like, okay, well, it just sounds like it's going to be tough to come back. Not will I come back? It's like,
Yeah.
okay, this really might be a process. And it was a process. I had to really reteach myself how to kick a ball with my left foot without kicking the ground because just mentally it was such a reset in my body.
Wow.
But I never doubted it, really. I knew I was going to come back for my senior year. So it was really just about locking in 10 times harder than I ever had to make it happen.
Yeah, it was never, if I'm coming back, it's when I'm coming back.
Yeah, yeah, it really
Yeah.
was.
So, you come back from injury, so you have basically your last year. Did you kind of think I got to make the most of it? I got to go, go crazy.
Yeah, I honestly did. I didn't know what soccer looked like for me after that season. I almost
Hmm.
didn't allow myself the capacity to think about it because it was what can I make of this time I have left in my college career? And it was, I was going to be the captain again. And there was a lot I personally had to focus on with also being that kind of leadership position in my team. So there was a balance there. And you want the most success for your whole team, not just for yourself. And so um, that that also helped me prioritize what I needed to do going into my senior year in terms of focusing on my sport because that's really what I wanted that last season.
Yeah, so you were just real focused on, the senior season. But was there anything in the back of your mind being like, if I do well enough, I could go pro, maybe, here or
Yeah.
overseas?
Yeah, I think I don't know exactly the moment where I started to visualize playing further than college. I think for me, it was always a decision since I really was at that young age choosing soccer to continually choose to play because I loved it. So I was always checking in. Am I loving this? What am I loving about it?
Mm.
What is keeping me doing it and motivated? And I think even towards the end of that senior season, it was the same amount of love, the same amount of motivation to get better and challenge myself. So I knew I would keep playing. I did not know what it would look like because there still isn't, but there's more of it now than there was a path to see yourself going pro for
Okay.
females, um, unless you're at a top four Division 1 university where, there was the draft or something. It
Right.
kind of was like, I don't know what that's going to look like. Are there agents out there? How do I do it?
Yeah.
I hadn't yet understood that. So I didn't know, but I felt that love there and I knew in some way I would keep playing in a competitive way.
Okay. So talk to us about the senior year. How was your last year in college, and
Yeah.
how'd you do?
Yeah. Yeah. We did really well. Our team was going through a lot of transitions. And again, being in that leadership role, that did put a lot um, on us and just on our senior class. But from really what stands out to me about my college experience is the camaraderie of the team. And I think that every person in that coaching staff picked players throughout all of the years who were really good at establishing a team chemistry. And that was really important to our success over those years. And our senior year, we really did just want to enjoy it. I think also it's an interesting time because a senior year can be a lot of athletes' last time ever playing
Yeah.
or and grappling with stopping or really wanting to stop but having one last season. So there's a lot of different personalities that are coming in your last season of terms of people, oh, this is it for me, or I'm already so burnt out. It's hard. It's not easy to play in college and balance everything and the pressure. So, but we really came out of it with a good amount of success in a really strong league, and that felt really good.
Yeah. So the season was over, and did you have to do like a little temperature check with yourself? Like, yeah, the love is still there. I still want to keep going and everything.
Yeah, totally. And um, I think when I kind of did that, and our soccer season is a fall sport, you
Hmm.
have that one more spring season where you're still finishing your degree. And I think I had seen one or two, probably only one or two other girls continue to play in that spring in prior years when I was an underclassman, someone else wanting to go pro and practicing with us in the spring. So I knew at least that's what I was going to do.
Yeah.
While I went through that decision process, I was going to come out to the spring training with the team that was, the juniors and lower and go train with them and kind of see what happens. And again, just really try to learn that process because you don't know what it's going to look like for you or who's going to call or how you're going to do it.
Yeah, yeah, I was about to ask. So you're training with them in the spring, but how does it work, agent wise, or how do you
Yeah.
get in contacts with teams anywhere really?
Yeah. So I personally didn't go the agent route
Okay.
for a really long time. And I think it's really different for everyone and where you're playing and almost who your network is, whether you need to or not. I think now there are a lot more agents that
Hmm.
can be a lot more useful for players at that collegiate level. Whereas when I was still in college, it still might have been a little premature and hard to weed out good agents and
Yeah.
that'll put you and learn who you are and put you in a place that you can find success at the next level. And so I used my network and really my assistant coach at Loyola at the time, his name's Kevin Dempsey, and he's a phenomenal coach and someone that always really understood his players, knew I wanted to keep playing, and he really helped me a lot. And that's not something that, your coaches have to do, but he utilized people he knew internationally and connected me to coaches overseas in Europe.
Okay. All right. So it was Europe. That was the first move for you.
Yeah, yep. I actually had to wait until I graduated, which I
Hmm.
wanted to graduate, but I did have to wait. I was showing up a few weeks, maybe a month late into the season over there. I
Okay.
graduated on the East Coast on like May 17th and flew out to Finland on May 18th, straight from
Wow. Literally the
graduation.
next day.
Yep, I did not go home because I live on the West Coast in California. So I was like, if I go home, it's just going to add on to the flight. I might get distracted. Who knows? I was like, I want to go straight from here. I want to go.
Wow. Okay. So you graduated next
Yeah.
day, you go overseas. So where are you
Yeah.
overseas?
I went to Finland,
Okay.
really close to the main city of Helsinki, and that was my first experience joining the European soccer
And
environment.
how did that come about? Through your assistant coach?
My assistant coach had a contact to a coach who actually used to coach at the in Florida for I think it was USF, and she was a Finnish coach, and she went and then started coaching at the pro level in Finland, and really I talked to her a lot before I went there, and she goes, I want to give you every opportunity you can to experience European soccer while you're here. And I was joining a team that was in the second division, but she made it really clear that she was a soccer player once herself, and that any opportunity that came up for me, um, she wanted to let us access to to go and explore, which meant a lot because when you're going sometimes, yeah, you're signing that contract and you're like, what did I sign? Am I locked in?
Yeah.
I've never been to Europe or I've never played professionally. How is it going to be? Where she really was like, we're going to work with you throughout the whole season. I mean, you're going to play for us and we're going to find success. But as things come up, we'll talk about them. So
Oh, wow.
that's
Okay.
great.
So you get out there, kind of what was like the beginning days over there in Finland? That is another, you just keep going like this. First East Coast,
Yeah.
then overseas.
Yeah. Yeah, Finland was my first real experience with culture shock for sure.
Mm.
My living situation was I went and lived with a host family, so I was
Oh,
in their
wow.
culture. I didn't necessarily go and just have an apartment by myself and was able to, just kind of lean into my American customs. I joined a
Yeah.
family, and I did what they did when I wasn't at training, but I liked it because it also allowed me probably to adjust to that culture a lot faster in terms of knowing a family there that's also outside of just soccer to kind of see what life was like at the same time as what being an athlete was there is
Mm.
like. But also that team was, and I think Finnish people really take you in, and that was amazing. They're not a culture that small talks and just befriends anyone. I think that's a little more like an American culture.
Mm.
They are not standoffish, but again, just no small talk. But when they are around you and you do become a friend or a teammate, it's like your family. And that
Yeah.
they really took me and one other American under their wing um, as we adapted to a new playing style and a new team.
Yeah. So how was that season? How was playing over there?
Yeah, we found a lot of success. We were at the top of the table.
Oh,
The
wow.
girls were, yeah, the girls were really excited. I think even coming up, to move up, and I was playing center forward at that point, pretty much just attacking positions, either an outside striker or center forward. And so I was finding a lot of success as well. That always helps.
Yeah, of
Um,
course.
so I think that also made that experience pretty smooth for the most part. There was a difficulty about three-fourths of the way in when we were at the top of the table and kind of locked in our spot at the top of the table. And uh, we had an opportunity, me and the other American had an opportunity to be borrowed by the team who was going to represent Finland in Champions League.
Oh,
And my coach, yeah, was all about it, but the director of the club was not as much. And
of the club that
that,
you were at?
yeah.
Oh,
And so
wow.
kind of that initial, my coach really kept to everything she told us, like as these opportunities come up, and we're finding success and you can, have an opportunity to go do that. She wanted us to have that. And that was a bit of a clash within the club that made for a tough pill to swallow because we trained with this other team. We're all ready. They were going to pay transfer fees and everything. And then the kind of director blocked that opportunity off. And we had a bit of a coaching switch. And I had to decide if I was going to be like, nope, that's it. I'm just disappointed and
Yeah.
turned off by not having that opportunity, or if I wanted to be like, there's still a lot of good in this team I found and finish out my season with this new coach. So that was tough.
So what would you end up doing?
So I decided to stay. I
Okay.
think I didn't want it to cut my opportunity short for at least playing in Finland.
Mhm.
And really your loyalty to the rest of your teammates as well. I think all my teammates were on board for me and another American to go have this opportunity, because then we were going to join back with our team and finish the season.
Yeah.
And I didn't want to leave them and have them almost be uh, part of just the collateral damage of kind of that little scandal, because I really respected those girls and they were so amazing and still people that if I went to Finland, I would call and go stay with them and visit. So I'm happy that I decided to stay, but it wasn't easy because then you're playing for a club and having a club find success through you, who also just blocked one of your personal opportunities for growth in the game. So not easy.
Damn, that is a little
Yeah.
wow.
Yeah.
So you saw the season there, and then what came about after that? Like, was it like, oh, I'm gonna stay for another season? Am I gonna try to move up to a different club within Finland or explore other options in
Yeah.
Europe?
Yeah. I really enjoyed my Europe experience, and being in Finland and starting to grasp this football culture that outside of the United States, because that's something I hadn't experienced quite yet. And I had finished that season and come back for the first time back to California because it had been a
Mhm.
while at this point.
Right.
And then COVID hit. And so
Oh,
things stopped for a little while and again brought me back to that place where I was checking in throughout COVID of what do I want and what is my love for the game and what's next.
and during COVID, you were based in California.
I was. Yep. I
Wow.
was back in
Okay.
California.
Okay. All right. So COVID hits. You're stuck in California. Everyone's pretty much stuck in the same place that they started at.
Right.
And what was going through your mind?
I think well, just not knowing, I guess, exactly when things were gonna start back up and what was gonna start back up when, um, and then what it would look like for me because I, to this point, had still never used an agent, and so
Hmm.
um, I wasn't necessarily out looking for one quite yet. I was just testing the waters with a few different connections I had made and seeing if something would then start, which did once I ended up getting in contact with a coach from Puerto Rico.
Okay. And actually, I have a question, and I just thought about it. You were saying how you got over to Finland and you were basically just doing off connections, no true agent.
Yeah.
Do you think if you had an agent that you would have still been blocked from playing Champions League with that one Finnish team?
That's actually a really good question. And I never thought about what kind of role an agent could have played
Hmm.
in that. It would have been interesting because I think everything would have been much more contractual instead of just going off of someone's word.
Okay.
So if I was dealing with an agent, maybe they would have been, getting things in writing and knowing, okay, you're allowing her to do this. She's practicing with this team now. She's going to be on for these months and then she'll be back. Maybe I would have had something that solidified it in those moments,
Mm.
because I was already training with this team. I mean, we pretty much had the travel schedule. I think the first game was going to be in Estonia, and and it was pretty last minute that all of a sudden it wasn't happening. So
Mm.
I'm sure a lot more of that communication would have gone through my agent
Yeah.
with the club director and the coach instead of me all of a sudden talking to my team captain, really, of the team I was on, being like, this isn't going to happen, and me kind of figuring out, wait, why and what's going on.
I see. Okay. Yeah, just that thought came in my head just now.
Yeah, I never thought about that. Hmm.
Yeah. Wow. Well, anyway, so you get in contact with a coach in Puerto Rico.
Yeah.
Okay, so how'd that happen? And I guess, did you make that move to Puerto Rico?
Yeah. I think so. I had gotten in contact with this coach, and he was building a club up there. There was already a league in Puerto Rico, but this is an American coach actually that was there, who had helped start. He was leading the charge, but
Mm.
there were Puerto Rican directors and a president who were helping behind the scenes and recruiting a few players from America to come over and add to that league.
Okay.
And I think being originally from California, loving the beach, and
Mm.
spending a lot of time and a lot of my career now in the cold and
Mm.
away, I think it just sounded, and coming off of COVID, sounded like what an adventure that I don't want to pass up. It wasn't necessarily going to be the solely the best soccer. Like I wasn't going into it being like, I just want to get the most eyes on me in the best league. I think
Mm.
I, again, made the decision that was right for the time in my life in order to keep loving the game and exploring something new. And I got to go live in Puerto Rico and do just that
Yeah.
with this team that was very professional.
Yeah. So how was, your time over there? And how long were you there for?
So I was in Puerto Rico for 2 seasons, and I lived there for about a year, and that started in 2021 as COVID restrictions were starting to lift and people were finding
Hmm.
a way to make it work. But COVID was still very much a part of that season in terms of getting tested before games. And
Yeah.
I mean, there was, I think, our first season in the finals, we had two players test positive for COVID and get taken out of the finals. So it's just an interesting element to bring to
Yeah.
that we had no one had ever been accustomed to before. But it really was a phenomenal experience, and we had phenomenal facilities. And the training was actually probably the most intense training I had ever had up until this point. Um,
Oh wow.
so,
And
yeah.
you were there for 2 seasons. So when are they? Was it like a fall, spring? Because you said you were there for a year.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah,
Okay.
it was. It was end of summer, all the way up into almost up until Christmas. And then there was a second season that played, um, I would say late winter, all the way up until summer again.
Okay. Okay. So kind of like one whole year, 2 seasons. I see. So
Yeah.
when you did that whole thing, were you trying to stay in Puerto Rico, or was that just kind of like get you back into playing professional because of the COVID break, and then see where you're gonna go after that?
Yeah, I think that's exactly where it was. I think again, that opportunity allowed me really intense training. I mean, we had two-a-days every day on the field. We also had a lot of opportunities to practice alongside the men's team in the morning,
Okay.
which was a really cool opportunity to be able to play at that speed and play um, in those conditions to help you develop differently as a player. And that is somewhere that I ended up seeing a lot of success as well in that um, center attacking positions. I played outside forward again as well, but I think it solidified me more as a center striker.
Mhm.
And that um, I think was really good in my development there to be able to get a lot of reps and be able to convert a lot of goals and games. So, yeah.
Yeah. So I guess after, success in Puerto Rico, did you feel like, okay, I needed more of a challenge in the league?
Yeah, I think that's exactly what happened. I definitely fell in love with that island. It
Mm-hmm.
was unbelievable. But it was a factor at that point of outgrowing the level that I was then at. I had gotten from it what I think I really needed, and it was time for me to look elsewhere because the travel I was getting to do already in Finland and around Europe and then in Puerto Rico was amazing. But then I was getting to a point where, okay, my game is starting to grow and
Mm-hmm.
this is turning into more of a career. So it was less about the experience and the travel at that point and more about where can I take this?
Yeah. So where did you take it?
Yeah. Um, so I had come back after those 2 seasons, and we had won those two championships. And
Damn.
that is when I decided to start using an agent for the first
Okay.
time in my career and being like, this is my resume. Um, and these are the types of people I was getting connected with. Where could I actually go and start playing beyond this? And that was an interesting ride because that I met some great people and started to use that agency and was pretty much a week out from flying to Australia and starting a season in Australia
Oh, wow.
before I heard from Santos in Brazil.
Wow, that's
And
two different
yeah,
countries.
yeah. And I think that's just how the life happens in this sport. And as a professional athlete, it's so hard to predict. And I am someone that my whole life has liked a bit of structure and
Mhm.
planning. And I've had to really adjust to someone calls and tomorrow I could be living here or doing this. So that is what happened. And again, I had people that were really understanding about an opportunity to play in Brazil
Mhm.
and having Brazilian heritage myself and from my mom's side of the family, it was something I didn't want to pass up. So
Yeah, yeah. So how
I,
did you get in contact with an agent, or how did you even choose an agent? Kind of what was that process like?
yeah, I think at that point, the soccer world is small and you start meeting so many people,
Hmm.
especially, even just from the moment you sign or commit to a college, you start to be just wrapped around people in the game. And now, even more so, I think, than back then, because people are seeing the opportunities more and what can happen for a women's professional player. And as I went and had these professional experiences, I started meeting people around the world and even back from my hometown who may have kept playing. And I would reach out to them and say, who are you using? Or who do you know of? And so, again, I kind of networked my way into finding an agency I liked.
Okay. Hmm.
And I think, there's sometimes the opportunity of do I sign to the big agency who has players in every league around the world and then hope that they give you the time and
Hmm.
attention to find the right spot for you? Or do you use someone's recommendation who's maybe not as big, but has a couple solid connections and is going to advocate truly for you and really understands you and where you can go? And I think for that is how I decided to choose my agency,
Okay.
which worked for me. And I liked being able to establish a relationship of who I was working for so I could trust them.
Yeah, 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 yeah. So you were 1 week away from going to Australia.
Yeah.
Boom, Brazil calls,
Yeah.
Santos calls, and you're going there. So what was, that like, your experience over there?
Yeah. Yeah. So up until that point, I would say Finland had the biggest culture shock. But
Hmm.
after going to Brazil, nothing compared really at all. In Finland, you still have a bit of a Western type of culture in Europe in
Hmm.
general. There's a lot of English. This was not that. There was no English. And I remember talking to that coach and starting to understand, although I fully didn't understand it yet, that not many Americans do this and not many foreign players at all go and play in the Brazilian leagues. Um, but I don't think I really understood that no one really does that. I was like, I could do it. Like, don't worry, I can do it. I played in other places, and I really want to play in Brazil.
That's a big
Um,
time opportunity too. Everyone knows
yeah,
Santos.
yeah. So I was going to make it work, and I kind of went into that a little bit fearless, which
Okay.
was important because it was very intense to a degree I didn't even understand yet. I had heard it was going to be intense. I had known it was going to be a big opportunity. I was familiar with the history of Santos. Um, but you don't know until you start experiencing something like
Right,
that.
right.
And I knew maybe two words in Portuguese before I got there. And so I was like, whatever happens, happens. But I want to do this. And I mean, I just really had to dive into the language and um, re- just utilize every tool I had to try and smooth that transition, which wasn't easy. I knew I was about to join a team where I was going to be playing with one of my idols. I had always followed the Brazilian national team and Cristiane Rosetta, who's, her alongside Marta and Formiga were
Hmm.
groundbreaking players for football in the world. And I was about to join her on a team and also play in the same position as her. So
Hmm.
I was like, just do what you can and like prove yourself when you get there. But you had to be a little bit fearless to take that on, I think.
Yeah. So what were trainings like? I mean, just
Yeah.
talk to us about the whole experience over there.
Yeah. There were different elements of jumping into our own training and also experiencing the Santos Football Club in general,
Yeah.
because I get there and you're like, oh well, let's watch a men's game, which I was able to watch anytime I wanted, and you see the fan base. And my first,
Crazy.
yeah, starting to get the introduction to that fan base was just unlike anything I'd ever seen
Hmm.
before. And you hear about it that Brazil is the soul of football, and it once you see it, you understand why. I mean, it is remarkable and intense in all the best ways, but
Hmm.
I was like, wow, this is, you know, it's a lot of pressure. And on the other side, I just wanted to get my first training. I wanted to start. I I just remember being so nervous for my first training because you don't yet know how you're going to look alongside a
Right,
team of
right.
Brazilians when you've never played with a bunch of Brazilians. And I think once I got through that first week of training, I started to see where I could play a role. And that was one of the most exciting times of me being there is, wow, I was so nervous. And I'm starting to see how I can play here
Hmm.
and I can make an impact. And the girls were incredibly welcoming. That culture is incredibly loving and passionate. And so that helped other people's belief in me and them just taking to my energy because I couldn't really speak to them, helped.
Yeah, it was a lot of probably hand gestures and everything, huh?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. A lot of like, who is this American? And that's the thing is when you're also introduced to Santos and to your teammates, to the coaches, to the fan base. I was starting to be introduced before I had stepped on the field. And that adds a lot of pressure because
Yeah.
then people are supporting you and putting their name behind you before you're showing what you can do. And all you want to do is prove that, their support is in the right place.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And were you the only American there?
There was one other American as well, and she also plays on the Philippines national team. And so it was us there, and she was a center back, and I was a center forward. So our trainings were a bit different, but it was nice to have one other American there.
Yeah, yeah. So did anyone kind of like take you under their wing to like help you around, the local stuff and all of that?
Oh yeah. I mean, the whole team was absolutely lovely. I will say there was probably three or four girls that just completely took us under their wing and almost just showed us so much love that I felt so safe with them. The coach and the coach's family were unbelievable to me as well. These were all people that I think knew had maybe played internationally, or the coach who knew had coached internationally, who kind of knew what I was in for, knowing Brazil and a different culture. Whereas I was Brazilian, but I didn't know what that meant. I'd never lived there. I didn't speak the language.
Yeah.
So they knew what was coming my way, even being at Santos already before I knew it. And it was throughout that year where it slowly more and more uncovered, wow, what I was doing, where the opportunities I was getting, uh, how much was involved in it. It was unbelievable.
And so I guess how was the season, for you on the field?
Yeah. Not having language, that was the first time where I had understood how much that could really impact your game because
Hmm.
there was one girl on the team besides the other American. There was one Brazilian who spoke fluent English, and that's it. Even the
Oh,
coach
wow.
didn't fully speak English. So he made a point and to make sure at times pull me aside after training or after the week of training and be like, you're doing well, keep what you're doing. Uh, these are the things we're starting to see. Other than that, I had to really learn how to not rely on other people for validation because in the sport, you're always getting feedback, even if you don't want it. I mean, even people's small comments or, I didn't have any language to go off of. So I'm on the field with a group of teammates who are also trying to learn how I play.
Hmm.
Um, and I don't have those small little phrases of, well, yet of good touch or, great ball or, like you're just you have to separate yourself from the validation because it would have driven me crazy.
Yeah.
It's being someone else talk, I would have had no idea what they were saying. And you just have to say, it's not about me. I know I'm doing the right thing. I know what my role is at this time and in this drill or at this practice, and just really trust yourself. And that was something I had to learn there for the first time.
Yeah, and I feel like a lot of people don't actually know that that's actually a big thing that a lot of
Yeah.
these players kind of deal with, and
Yeah.
especially some like area or some country that they've never been a part of where the culture is completely different and everything. So you kind of got to rely
Yeah.
on yourself. Like at the end of the day, it's you versus you.
Oh, yeah. 100%. And then playing at a club that was that big,
Hmm.
you realize that, oh, even the fan base, they support the club. They don't support the player unless the player is making their club look really good. So
Hmm.
you just have yourself. You don't, you know, I've, I've been to professional games here in America, and a fan of the club is a fan of whatever's happening, there. If your team is tied, if Santos is tied, you better step it up. If you're
Yeah.
not scoring, you better step it up. You don't just automatically have that support. So it really was about being patient with myself, and validating myself in that, because you're right. So many people don't understand that that's a huge aspect of the game. They're just looking at, oh, here's a player, she played in this league. What are her stats? And
Hmm.
they don't take into account the million other things that go into
Yep.
what it takes to succeed in a specific environment.
Yeah. And did that pressure that you were just talking about like kind of get to you?
Yeah, I think so. I ended up having some success a bit early on in my time at Santos.
Hmm.
One of my first games, we were in for the Brasileiro, which is the highest division there. We had started that league. I missed 3 or 4 games because we were getting my papers certified so that I could play. And I was put into a Clásico, which is a huge rivalry game. And it was Santos versus Sao Paulo. And I was put in last 7 minutes of the game, and I had scored, and we had won that game 1-0.
Damn.
And and I think that allowed me to take a lot of pressure off for a while, because
Hmm.
and so I mean, partially I feel lucky for having that success early on, because it might have been really hard if it took a long time.
Hmm.
I mean, people want to make their judgments about you quick. You don't always have the luxury of time. And so I was really fortunate to have a great moment early on. And that really allowed a lot of people to start supporting me, and me just to know I can find a role here, sometimes as that super sub, because
Yeah.
I'm playing uh, behind one of the best players in the world
Yeah.
for Brazilian football. So yeah, and that goal, and I didn't even know until I think even a week later that I became the first American to even score in the top division in Brazilian football, which just
Wow.
spoke to how few Americans go and play over there.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
there was a lot to help me then go a little easier on myself and allow myself to play and perform with a little more ease.
Yeah, so you kind of got that weight off your shoulders, if you will, like having the
Yeah.
instant impact. Kind of how did that help you, throughout the rest of the season?
Yeah, it helped. I think I still had to learn the gravity. I think I still didn't understand the gravity of what I had just done too.
Hmm.
Um, I had scored in a lot of games before. I had won championships in Puerto Rico. I had had success in college. So I was like, yay, another goal. And I was starting as the year went on to be like, oh, that wasn't just any goal. Like,
Yeah,
this is a Classico in a country where football means more to them than anything else in the world. So it helped, but I think being a competitor and being an athlete, it's the next game. And so it's, what are you going to do next? Because
yeah,
as much as people will remember that, they'll also forget it quickly. And you have to show up the next time and the next time. So I'm someone that wants to succeed. And I think every week was, how can I earn myself the most amount of playing time? How can I see the field, and how can I be an impact no matter what role I'm in? And
mm,
so it helped, but pressure's on the next week, and it's a long season there. It's a long year. It's, you I mean, the season is like February to December, so there's a lot more the whole year.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So you were there for one full season?
Yeah, I lived there
Okay.
for the full year, and then decided to to come back home for a little while after that.
Okay, so you did 1 year in Brazil and then came back to California.
Yep, yeah,
Okay,
I did.
okay. And then you were reassessing kind of like wanting to play or playing elsewhere, anything like that?
Yeah, I think I mean we've spoken to the pressure in Brazil and I mean even now I still study Portuguese and I've been able to learn the language, which has been amazing and having Brazilian family and connecting with that culture, meeting, people who have played at Santos, who play at Santos now and huge names in football. And I took so much away from that experience, but it was difficult at times. And again, there's a lot that goes into a season and coaching changes
Mm,
um and I think at that point, living there for a full year and being so removed from America, I needed to step back and understand and almost like soak it in. Because when everything's happening so fast and you're just trying to hang on every day to understanding what someone's going to say that next hour or where you have to be on a bus, what meal you're supposed to be at, I mean, it's exhausting. And I
yeah,
didn't want to, again, burn myself out of the sport entirely. So as much as I loved that year, it was the hard decision to take, to not commit again, to not resign and just keep doing it before I was actually able to soak in what that year had been and what is the right move for me in my life and with soccer after.
I see. Okay. So what was the right move? Or that you
I
felt
think,
was the right move?
yeah, yeah. I think that was one of the harder decisions I had to make because I think career wise, it's like you're breaking barriers in a top league, in a really respected league. But it was right for me to come back and kind of reevaluate. And that is when I decided to start training here in California. And I took a pretty unique opportunity to join the, and I had an agent at this point
Mm,
who I established a great relationship with. And I really trusted. And there were just some interesting opportunities coming up. And I decided to go and join the Vancouver Whitecaps and play in an international tournament, but be based out of Vancouver, which is the closest I had played to home since I was 17 years old,
yeah.
going to college. So that was what I am excited I made that move, but I knew that was what was right for me at the time.
Okay. And how long did you play with them for?
I played with them for kind of that international tournament. I joined it towards the end of their league season.
Okay.
That way I could be eligible with the team. And then played with them for about 4 months in the CONCACAF Women's Champions Cup.
Okay. And then that takes us to what timeline? Like, where are we at right now?
Right. So that was my year in Brazil was 2023. And now
Okay.
we are, I joined the Vancouver Whitecaps, and that tournament is played in 2024. So last year, throughout the end of summer and going into fall.
Okay. Okay. So what's next?
Yeah, I think, coming off of that international tournament and playing some top clubs, we played Club America and the San Diego Wave, and I fell in love with the game again. I loved it. But I think I am now at a point where I was probably similar to at the end of my Brazil season, where I want to make sure I'm making the right decision in terms of my overall career, and that
Okay.
includes beyond soccer. And so, being from California and loving my community and my family here, who has supported me for years and years and years, internationally and nationally, I'm seeing what that transition can be like working for the sports industry in maybe on the other side in terms of being in sports media, but also still training to be ready if the right opportunity comes up in a league I want to play in next. So
Okay, I see. So we're not talking retirement right now, right?
we're not talking retirement,
Okay.
but so I'm training and I'm training here and I'm working with my agent, but I'm also working and, opportunities as I've found come out of nowhere and can come in any kind of capacity. And if that capacity is a great opportunity with working within sports media and in the sports industry, I am not closed off to that.
Okay.
Um, but it's hard to say.
Yeah. Yeah, you never know, where life's gonna take you next.
Yeah, you really don't. Not being an athlete and not in this world. So
Yeah, yeah,
yeah.
yeah. Well, okay, so let's do a couple of questions of get to
Okay.
know Jordan,
Okay.
and then we'll do a couple from the Instagram and then wrap it
Okay.
up. All
Let's
right,
do it.
so going into a big match, right? Who are you listening to artist wise that kind of gets
Mm.
you in that zone?
Oh my gosh. I have music taste that's all over the map.
Okay.
I do listen to a lot of Brazilian music
Okay.
um, that the Brazilians introduced me to. So I would say there's a few Brazilian artists that I listen to, and I'm not opposed to a really good slow song. So that's
Okay.
maybe a bit of an unpopular opinion, but um, it's hard to name one song specifically. But um, Eminem brings me back to my childhood, so that's
Okay.
always a classic. But somewhere in there.
Okay. Okay. All right. So you're talking about, you went to Finland, Puerto Rico, Brazil. Were you doing Duolingo?
Oh, I was. I
Okay.
was not. I was not doing Duolingo in Finland. I was kind of just learning some Finnish from the girls, but speaking English. In Brazil, Duolingo was one of my best friends every day. Every single day, I did Duolingo.
So is that streak alive right now?
I had to let the streak go.
Oh no.
I know. I, but I take a Portuguese class now every week, and I have since I've
Oh,
been in Brazil. Yeah.
okay. That might
So
be a little better than Duolingo.
yeah. So I kind of graduated from Duolingo, but Duolingo was not happy to see me go. They were like, not being, they knew letting that streak go would not be easy for me, but I did.
All right. And if you could build your dream five-a-side team, so if you're going one keeper, let's
Oh,
go one keeper, one defender, two midfielders, and two forwards.
oh, wow. Okay.
No, that's not. No, that's
Um,
not even the right math. That's not even
wait,
the right math.
it, it
One
was,
keeper, and
okay.
then one keeper, one defender, two midfielders, one forward.
Okay. I'm gonna say my keeper is going to be Morgan McLaughlin.
Hmm.
She is right now playing for Vancouver Rise. I just played with her over in Vancouver last year, and she's phenomenal. And I know she's gonna be up and coming and huge. So I'm gonna keep her as my keeper, prior teammate. It's hard not to say Naomi Girma. I mean,
Baller.
she, yeah, I
Hmm.
you that's just never a wrong answer. She's absolutely phenomenal. Um, I have two midfielders.
Two midfielders. Yeah.
Okay. I'm gonna put, oh, that's hard. I'm gonna put myself as a midfielder.
Okay.
Um, and I'm gonna play midfield because I think I'm going to leave my top striker for Marta.
Okay.
Gonna have one of my Brazilians in there with me. And then my other midfielder, I think I'm gonna go with oh, that is so tough. I'm actually going to put Trinity Rodman as the other midfielder because
Okay.
we're two kind of attacking midfielders, but Marta can hold it down in the center, and we have Naomi Girma, so I'm not worried.
That's a solid team.
There we go.
That's a solid team. All right, so a couple of questions from the Instagram. First of all, you must have been just loved in Brazil because the amount of people that said something in Portuguese, I mean, I can't even understand any of this stuff.
They probably said Volta para Santos, like come back to Santos.
Yeah, actually, yeah, some of them did say
Yeah.
that. Then, I mean, some were saying like, come back to Santos. Some were saying Santos with like all kind of emojis, and
Oh
then
yeah.
just a
That
lot of
fan base.
Portuguese. Man, they're
Yeah.
crazy.
I mean, yeah, it's hard to explain, but you got a little taste of it in your DMs, and
Yeah,
I'm
just a
sure.
little bit. This is crazy. So
Yeah.
the one question is dream team to play for. So I guess we could, put it in terms of you saying if the right opportunity comes, go back to playing. What
Yeah.
would that opportunity be?
You know, um, that's such a good question. My, you know, because it's the right timing too. So I would say I have two. If it was right and I wanted to do a big travel again, I would love to go back to Santos. I
Hmm.
mean, it's hard when that fan base really takes you into. It really is something special. So that is, I would say, a dream if I could do it and move away for a whole other year. I would love to go back there. And if not, I would swing the other way and go, Angel City, because I'm from Southern California. And
Hmm.
to be able to have my roots closer to home and play here in America would definitely be a dream. I mean, and that team is so solid. So,
Yeah, that's a good team too. Yeah.
yeah.
All right, and then the last question off of it, favorite goal you've scored?
Oh, that's so good. I think I'm going to refer to the one I talked about. That
Hmm.
one I scored against Sao Paulo when I was playing for Santos was my first goal in Brazil in a Clásico. And it was a header. I flicked over the keeper. And yeah, it was some of my first time getting minutes on the field in the top division there. And I just made the most of what I could with them. So I was proud of myself for that one.
Okay, I'm gonna have to look it up and try to find that goal because that sounds
Yeah.
that's a historic goal for just U.S. soccer
Yeah.
in general.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it
Yeah,
was cool. Very special.
but yeah, thank you, Jordan, for hopping on the pod. Sharing your story with us. We really appreciate your time and energy. We wish you just success in whatever you do, whether if it is the game or
Yeah.
if it's outside of the game. We wish you the best.
Thank you so much. No, it was great to meet you, Camille. And I think that it's awesome that you're talking, getting all these players' stories. Soccer's an amazing sport and it's worldwide. So I appreciate what you're doing.
Yeah, for sure.